Elysse, please don't wear the Dale Jr. shirt today, please. You really think I'm gonna go like a month and a half without posting a video and not wear the Dale Jr. shirt? You think that's what's gonna happen? It has been it's been over a year since the last time I did a Q&A, so let that sink in. Yeah, I felt like it was time. It's way past time for me to do one, seeing as it's been over a year and my channel has grown substantially, so I handpicked 10 questions. I think I put out, I posted on YouTube and Instagram asking you guys to give me some questions to answer. So let's chat. Let's dive in, shall we? So Lenka asked, do you read books in your target languages? Barely. I have said this before that, I don't really learn languages to read. That's kind of just like a plus that comes as like a byproduct of the process, I mostly learn languages to communicate and to interact with people. So I guess reading isn't representative of that experience for me. If I am reading a book in another language, it's going to be Spanish and it is not going to be fiction. I feel like in the language community, everybody loves to read fiction. Like, for example, people love to, when they're learning languages, some of the first books they'll read will be like Harry Potter, the Harry Potter series, because they're widely translated, or also Percy Jackson. But since I was like 13, I figured out I really don't like fiction books. Like, I can't really stay invested in them as much as I can real world stuff, like nonfiction. So here are some examples of what I do read in Spanish. We got Visión de los Vencidos. It's a collection of indigenous accounts of the conquest in Mexico. It is all in Spanish, translated originally from Nahuatl, which is really, really interesting to me. Las Venas Abiertas de América Latina, which is about the centuries-long pillaging of Latin America and how it relates to modern imperialism. And lastly, I actually recently just finished this book. It's called Los Demonios del Edén, which is by Lidia Cacho. She's a Mexican journalist, and this is her account of corrupt Mexican politicians and business people that are involved in organized crimes such as child pornography, money laundering, like all that stuff. So that's the type of stuff that I read. Pretty heavy topics. So I guess my point is, no, I don't really read a lot of books in my target languages, and if I am, they're going to be in Spanish. But that's not to say that I don't read in my other languages. Like, I read online articles in German and Portuguese and stuff like that. So sorry I'm not as much of a bookworm as most people are in the language community. I feel like people always want book resources, and I'm like, dude, you do not want to read the stuff that I read. Y ahora tenemos una pregunta de Marcelo, está en español. ¿Cuánto tiempo toma tener un nivel decente de alemán como para hacer un intercambio de uno? Bien, en este caso se define un nivel decente como un nivel suficiente para hacer un intercambio, ¿verdad? Y en Alemania creo que la mayoría de las universidades requieren un nivel de B1 para entrar a la universidad. Y en mi caso yo tardé como 3 o 4 años en alcanzar el nivel B1 en alemán, pero no te preocupes, ¿por qué? ¿Sabes qué? El tiempo que uno tarda en aprender un idioma no significa nada, o sea, nada. Técnicamente llevo 6 años aprendiendo el alemán porque yo comencé a los 15 años, pero eso no significa que lo he estudiado por 6 años seguidos, ¿sabes? Creo que solo he tenido como 2 años de estudios serios en alemán, porque cuando estaba en la prepa, casi no lo hablábamos en las aulas, o sea, tal vez repetíamos unas cosas después de la profe, pero mis estudios serios empezaron como nomás hace 2 años. Así que por un lado podría decir que solo tengo 2 años estudiando el alemán, porque pues el compromiso serio comenzó a los 19 y pues ahora tengo 21. Pero en general he tenido como un conocimiento básico del idioma por 6 años. Toma por ejemplo a Lendy Huetes, nuestra reina de los idiomas aquí en YouTube. Ella habla como muy seguido sobre su experiencia con el francés. Empezó en la escuela cuando estaba chiquita y luego pasó mucho tiempo sin estudiarlo, y ahora como adulta lo está pues estudiando en serio de nuevo, y creo que tiene como nivel de B2 o tal vez C1, no me acuerdo. Entonces eso significa que tardó como 10 o 15 años en alcanzar ese nivel. Entonces la cuestión del tiempo, o sea, el tiempo no significa nada, porque yo pues personal, yo he visto a personas aprender idiomas a pues niveles decentes en solo 2 años o 1 año, porque pues se esforzaron todos los días y es algo muy relevante e importante en sus vidas. Así que con respecto a los niveles, no piensen tanto en el tiempo, sino pues enfóquense en la calidad y la constancia de sus estudios. Eso es lo más importante, así lo veo yo. I'm trying to read this name. Idealin? Anyways, this person asks, a language you kind of refuse to learn, not because you dislike it, but because you just wouldn't want to. Let me stress, not because I dislike it, before everybody gets all defensive of like their home language and their home country, but just because I feel no allure or interest or, see that happening in my future in general. Oh, okay, Japanese and Korean, because I've tried Korean, and those two, they have very intense like politeness levels. I can't deal with that. Italian or any other Romance languages, Arabic, Esperanto, or any other constructed languages for that matter. So those are pretty much the only ones that I can say right now that I have no interest in. I think I'm pretty open and like flexible, because for example, if you had asked me 2 years ago if I ever thought that I would study Hebrew, I would have said no. And these languages, it's not like just like a blind bias, it's not like I don't have a reason that I don't want to learn them. They're ones that I'm at least a little bit familiar with, and I still have like no interest or cultural ties that would make the difficulty of learning that language worth it. Another question relating to other languages. Do you plan to learn more non-European languages like Turkish or Mandarin or Swahili? Now, it's not that the person implied this in their question, but I wanted to use this question as an opportunity to speak on this because I get this all the time. Sometimes it's even like a shady insult, like, oh, why do you only speak like white people languages, or why do you only speak colonizer languages? Because I live in the Western Hemisphere. I feel like there's this notion that I only want to learn European languages because those are the ones that I speak to in most advanced level, and they're probably the ones that you see me use most on my social media. It's kind of a really unnerving notion, because the reality is when you live in the Western Hemisphere, those are most likely the languages that you're either A, going to be offered in school, or B, going to have like a cultural interest in because they're more present in the Western Hemisphere. For example, I learned Spanish and Portuguese because growing up in Florida, there's a shit ton of like Cubans, Venezuelans, and Brazilians and Puerto Ricans. Like, that's what's around me, so why wouldn't I be most drawn to that first if I'm a person that wants to learn languages, right? And then when I got to high school, I took French and German because those were the ones offered by my high school, aside from Spanish and Latin, which, who's gonna learn Latin? Who's gonna do that? And this question also kind of confuses me, because I feel like as I've gained more footing as a language learner, or like the longer I've gone into my language learning journey, the more interest I've shown in non-European languages. And I think that maybe that person asked that because they're new to my channel, or they just haven't seen me talk about this on social media or on YouTube. But for my language goals video this year, for example, I expressed interest in Nahuatl, which is an indigenous language, Georgian, Turkish, which I know those are like Eurasian-ish languages, so they're like half European, but you know what I mean. Sorry that was such a long answer, but I felt like, instead of just giving a 1 or 2 sentence answer, I should explain on why I mostly just speak European languages. Une question en français. Quels sont vos films et livres français préférés? Bon, d'abord, tu peux me tutoyer, cette chaîne n'est rien formel, mais récemment j'ai vu le film La Haine, c'est très connu. Et c'est très très bon. Je l'ai vu pour la première fois avec mon petit ami, c'était ça, la suggestion, et j'aime ce film. Il parle de 3 mecs qui vivent dans les banlieues de Paris, et c'est pour ça qu'ils vivent et voient beaucoup de violences policières. C'est très rapide, mais à la même fois c'est très artistique, c'est juste qu'il y a beaucoup d'endroits dans le film qui changent très rapidement. Bon, je peux le recommander sans doute, c'est un très bon film. So, how do you keep learning once you have an intermediate high level in a language? Love all you do, by the way. So I think as language learners, we're a little bit obsessed with progressing sometimes, specifically in ways that we can manage and measure. But I think once you get to an intermediate or high level, to truly graduate to fluency, you have to just immerse as much as you can. I'm talking reading, putting your phone in that language, keeping up with current events in the countries that speak that language, especially on social media, interacting with other people in that language, maybe whether it be native speakers or other learners. Also doing that in real life if you can, whether by video call or traveling. I know that that's not something that everybody can do, but if you have that resource, take advantage. Or I don't know, it could be learning and picking up new hobbies in that language, so using tutorials online from YouTube that are in that language. Immersion can be anything. To me, this is the only way to normalize a language enough in your life where it no longer feels like something that you're pursuing, but something that you're living. And I feel like I really only have this with Spanish. For example, I translate journalism articles from Spanish to English for a media outlet in Mexico called Pie de Página. And the way that I found that is by, surrounding myself with Spanish language on everything, especially social media, because journalism right now is a very, very social media-y thing. It is like impossible to separate the two. So because I did that, it provides me with an opportunity that immerses me even more, because now, I'm getting to translate all of these articles from different parts of Mexico, so I'm learning more about the culture, learning new terminology, new slang or regionalisms and things like that. And it's really, really enriching. So one opportunity kind of, breeds another. The thing about immersion is that if you feed into it a little in your life, it'll come back tenfold. So really take time to evaluate how you can immerse yourself in different ways to serve you and your personal interests best. And that is when you're going to feel like you've truly graduated. So Sanara Gibson says, I'm in a language rut. Please help. Any advice, please? So even though this is a very vague question, because I don't know if maybe you're doing too much and it's messing you up, or you're doing too little and not compromising enough, it could really be anything. A general piece of advice I can give to someone who's in a language rut is to reconnect with the reason that you started learning the language in the first place. So after you've been learning a language for a while, maybe you get comfortable, hit that intermediate plateau, we've been through this, and you start thinking gosh, what is happening? And you need to think about, why am I learning this language in the first place? To get work opportunities, to talk to more people, whatever the reason. Think about that and then go do more things relating to that, or things that are going to, give you more opportunities in that. For example, if you're learning the language because of work, you could go on the internet, look up books or blogs written by people in that language that work in the same sector that you do. You can learn more about your work in that language. And then maybe down the road it leads you to, do a master's program in that country. But if you're learning just to make friends, maybe you want to make specific friends from specific countries, put yourself out there, because there is a huge, huge online pen paling community. I know my friend Tanya online, she's from Russia, she has a ton of pen pals. We've actually written each other a couple times, but we wrote each other in Spanish because she's already pretty fluent in English and I'm not learning Russian, so what were we gonna exchange? Anyway, she made a lot of friends from France, a lot of pen pal friends, or internet friends in general, and now she's straight up living in France. She's 18 and she just moved and she's going to the Sorbonne. What the fuck? So connect with the reason you started learning in a creative way. My friend Valeria says, what are your other hobbies? What a wholesome question. I guess it's very flattering when someone asks about my world outside of languages, because sometimes I feel like people only follow me for that. Every time I post a picture of myself, I literally lose 100 followers on Instagram. I like to take photos. I'm a journalism student and I kind of work as a journalist, so I'm multimedia, which means that I write, but I also take photos. I like to read and write, of course, and I like to do trivia. Trivia, for those of you who don't really know that term, it's just when you compete in a little Jeopardy competition to answer random questions about trivial stuff. So, very unnecessary information, who was the Sun King? Louis XIV. I've actually competed in state trivia competitions before, back when I was in high school, because of my strengths in foreign languages, of course, English conventions, and also classical music history. I don't really talk about that much, but I'm a huge classical music nut. I still consider myself a cello player. I haven't played cello in about 2.5 years, because when I was in high school I just rented one from the high school, but I do intend, once I finish college and I'm in one situated place, to buy a cello and start playing again. So those are my hobbies, I guess. Y una última pregunta de Diana, ¿en qué país te gustaría vivir? En el futuro, en general, yo no me veo viviendo en un país donde yo no conozca bien el idioma. Entonces, por ejemplo, yo no me mudaría a China sin conocimiento ninguno del idioma. Pero eso es chistoso porque sí lo hizo una hermana mía. Entonces yo sí tengo muchas ganas de vivir en 2 países específicos, que son ¿cómo se llama? México y Alemania. Tal vez también Brasil, pero eso no lo puedo decir como 100% porque todavía no he viajado allá. Entonces tendría que ir y conocerlo antes de pensar en eso. Pero yo ya estuve en Alemania y en México los dos, así que yo tengo más perspectiva en esos países, ¿verdad? Y con mis skills en estos idiomas me siento bastante segura y creo que podría sobrevivir y conseguir un pues un buen trabajo, algo así. Y ya, esos son los, pues como los 2 o 3 países que, aparte de Estados Unidos, que me gustaría vivir. Anyways, I've talked way too much. I literally had to go get a new memory card because I was speaking for an hour, which is insane because this video is probably not even going to be 15 minutes long at the end of it, but perspective. So if you guys were my friends in real life, you would get sick of me very quick because I talk way too much. But I so appreciate all of you guys watching this video. Thank you so much. If you have any more questions, comments, concerns, insults, leave them all down below and I will be answering them, of course. You can follow me on my social media if you would like to, if that sounds like it appeals to you. It is Elysse de Vega on Twitter. That's ELYSSEDAVEGA. And Elysse Speaks on Instagram. So go check that out. Yeah, I'm happy to be making videos again. I miss you guys a whole lot, so I hope everybody's well. Take care. See you. Bye.